Developer conference. I love the kind of marrying of all these different topics and like seeing all these folks in person, both people I've met on the internet in real life. It's a super energizing place to be.
Well, this is actually my first time at Universe. It has been awesome. Not only the event and how it looks and feels, but the people and the energy, like everybody's really excited to do really nerdy things. And that's kind of my favorite thing.
The community is really great. There's all different types of people. Everyone obviously really loves the GitHub platform, and we're all here for essentially just making ourselves better and more productive.
I came here, I got open source, and I got a fresh new deck. I'm loving it. It's great. It's fantastic.
The conversation, the number of different topics that you can talk to people about. We literally just had a question and we're talking to some of the GitHub experts about it and solve a problem we've been working on.
Seeing the vibrancy of the community, the colors, even just how things are portrayed, and the little gifs that I have a programmable name tag. I love all these quirky little things. It speaks to the community of just how nerdy, but also fun and interactive. And I think it's a really just cool vibe to be around.
I've spoken at many conferences at this point, and most of them are more corporate driven and quite a bit just louder, frankly. But here I've made friends with many people. Everyone feels approachable, and I feel approachable too, and I've really enjoyed that experience so far.
We believe that every developer can be an AI developer with the right tools and training. That's why we've launched GitHub Models on the GitHub Marketplace, a place for you to explore and experiment with a hand-picked collection of top models with entitlements attached to your GitHub account. So let's try out one of the newest models, GPT-4o. We can pass in an initial user prompt to interact with the model, and we can use the playground to adjust the parameters. For example, we can change the system prompt and experiment with the temperature for more or less randomness. Now that we've adjusted the parameters, we can send user prompts to interact with the model, simulating its use for our application. Now GPT-4o looks great, but I want to test how a different and smaller model handles this scenario. So let's switch to Phi3 mini instruct and evaluate its response. Looks good. Now we can also navigate to the details page to find out more information about the model through the README, evaluation, and transparency tabs. Now I've made my decision and I want to start using the models with code. By clicking the code button, we get access to some getting started instructions. We can even use a GitHub codespace to create a pre-configured development environment, ready with SDKs and some samples. Now the model API calls use the entitlements that come with my GitHub account. And because the codespace knows who I am, I don't have to add an API key or sign up to any other services to start experimenting in code. Talking about experimenting, let's update the streaming sample to use Phi3 mini 4K instruct. We'll also update the prompt and continue with our experiments. Now those entitlements we mentioned earlier follow you wherever you're logged in, including the GitHub CLI. Here, we're calling AI models to create questions for first-year computer science students so they can check their knowledge of Git. But we can even combine other CLI commands with the GitHub CLI. For example, let's summarize the last 10 commits of this repository using Phi3 mini instruct. GitHub Models helps minimize the friction as you explore and experiment with AI models. So take your first steps in building AI-powered apps by joining the waitlist for GitHub Models. We can't wait to see what you build next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kadesha, and welcome to Open Source Friday, the show where we talk to maintainers about the apps that they're maintaining. Thank you so much for joining us. Today on Open Source Friday, we are chatting with Grafana, and I'm super excited to talk with Kyle from Grafana, who works as a developer advocate. Hi, Kyle.
Hey, Kadesha, how are you today?
Yes. Welcome to Open Source Friday. Super happy to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
Doing great. It's a beautiful Friday and very excited to be here.
Awesome. So I'm happy that we resolved all our tech issues.
Yes.
Of course, there had to be tech issues, standard live stream, live demo type situation, but we're here and we're good to go. So let's just jump right into the show because honestly, this show goes really quickly and like time just goes like that. So let's jump right in. So who is Kyle and what does he do?
Yeah, so I'm Kyle Cunningham. I'm a senior engineer with Grafana Labs, and we build Grafana, which is an observability platform, open source, of course.
Nice. And so like I've heard about Grafana. I've always known about Grafana. And for some reason, I thought Grafana was like this huge company that wasn't open source. So like how long has Grafana been open source? Has it always been an open source organization?
Yes, we've always been an open source organization. Grafana was created about 10 years ago by one of our founders, Torkel Odegaard. And it's been open source from day one. So we do have, on one hand, we do have like a lot of folks. I think we're going on around 1,500 at the moment. A lot of engineers. But with that, the vast majority, I think, of what we do and what we put out there is open source code.
Wow, 1,500 engineers is quite a lot of people.
Okay, well, maybe not quite that many engineers. 1,500 people. I want to say we're probably
Okay.
about half engineering. So a good probably 700 or 800 engineers, which is still quite a lot, I think.
Yes, I think that's quite a lot. It's interesting because like, when you think about, or at least when I think about open source projects, a lot of times I don't think about them as these huge companies with 1,500 employees. And it's always good to know that that's a possibility for projects as they grow and scale. So tell me more about Grafana. What is Grafana, and why should we care about it?
Yeah, so Grafana is, as I mentioned before, is an observability platform. And pretty much what it allows you to do is to connect to data, almost any kind of data that you have, and visualize it, build correlations with it, monitor it. And this is for all kinds of different things. It can be for infrastructure. It's been used in spacecraft and aerospace. I've seen it used for racing sailboats, satellites, finance, all kinds of stuff. Even have a couple of coworkers who have used Grafana for their bird watching habits and their bird monitoring. So they categorize bird calls and things like that, so they can monitor like migration patterns and what have you. So it is an incredibly flexible platform, and it really, I think, that's powered by the fact that it is open source. We do have just all these different things that we can connect to, and we're really not shy about building those connections and building those sources of data.
Wow. Observability for bird watching.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, this is really fun.
That's very interesting. And so like before we jump right into the demo, which everyone loves to see, what would you say are some like lesser known features or lesser known features of Grafana? I had a brain fart right there.
No worries at all. Man, there are so many. I think one of my favorites is we have a lot of tools that are built into Grafana or kind of like run alongside of Grafana. And one of my favorites is actually our incident response stuff. With Grafana, you can monitor incidents and things like that. And it's just kind of cool because it sets up everything for you. Get like a Slack channel if you want for the incident, so you can talk about it and things like that. So that's a fun one. Also, like our data transformation capabilities are really good. So one of the cool things you can do is actually pretty in-depth data analysis and whether that's like calculating statistics on data or stuff like that. Really quite interesting though, that you can kind of take that data and still do modeling and stuff like that with it. Even if, you're not really deep into the data, we have the math, we have these capabilities, and they're all built in for folks to use.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. I see someone said that they worked on a project the other day where they paired Grafana with Prometheus for a CI/CD project that they're working on, and it went very well. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll get to show a little bit of the CI/CD stuff too, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, so let's jump right into the demo. I'm gonna bring up the stage, and it's all you.
All right, well, thank you. I did have like a little presentation too. I'm gonna probably skip through most of that stuff and really get to the fun, the meaty stuff. So here, there we go. We went over that, and these are some of the things I was talking about. This is with the Japanese space agency. They used Grafana to monitor their last moon lander, which is pretty cool. We're used in manufacturing as well. And a lot of people ask me, right off the bat, is like, where is somewhere I can actually check out Grafana? Thankfully, Wikimedia and Wikipedia, they actually have a public Grafana instance. So if you want to see what's going on with Wikipedia today, right this moment, you can do so. And this is always kind of interesting to look at, just the massive amount of traffic that they're serving at any given time. I think it's been the Democratic conventions here in the US. So little traffic spikes there, probably pretty reasonable. But this is just kind of one example of how Grafana can be used. But we're going to be getting into like how can you use Grafana to really monitor your code, monitor what's going on in GitHub, and that's what I'm really excited to show you guys. But this is like, I think this is a pretty cool example, and you can find it out there.
It's a very cool example.
Bump over to this. All right. So what I wanted to show first, and just really quickly, is that I'm just in the page to set up a data source in Grafana. And for setting up a GitHub data source, pretty much you just click the add button, you go over to adding a GitHub data source. All you need is a personal access token. And that's it. It just needs to have these permissions that are kind of outlined on this page. And then once you do that, you're pretty much good to go. Even if you're using GitHub Enterprise, it works just fine with that too. You just need to provide the right URL here. I won't go through that step here, but really it's just copy paste and you're pretty much set to go at that point. I already have one set up, and so I'm going to be playing with that. Okay.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Sure. You get the right button here. Okay. How is that?
Yes.
Excellent. So one of the things that we've been using GitHub for, and using kind of with Grafana, is just to kind of monitor what we're doing for our own code, and what just being able to navigate it more easily. And so I'm going to go in here, and I have a few dashboards already set up. Grafana is really centered around creating dashboards. And once I get to a dashboard, I can set up different visualizations, different data displays. So I'm going to go over to that one now. So this one, as you see, there's kind of nothing showing up here so far. And the reason is that this is set up so that it can take a variable up here for the name of the author. So I'm gonna out myself here. Let's set the time frame to the last 30 days or so, the last month. And then I'm gonna put in my GitHub username here. And there we go. So in the background, this is pulling all of the GitHub data directly from GitHub. So in the past month, I've had 4 PRs, 3 reviews. I got a couple open ones. And these are actually the ones that I have like open right now. And so this is kind of actually is my activity essentially on GitHub for the past month. I've been working kind of in the background, so not coding too much. But here we are. And so right off the bat, we have kind of a lot of nice capabilities, just the ability to get some easy numbers down here. And this is nice to see, but we're also actually linking out to things here. And in a sec, I'll just show how that happens. So like with this is actually just a direct link over to GitHub. And no matter like whose info I put in here, whatever it happens to be, these links are going to be all correct. They are dynamically generated. So yeah, here, let me, and so just an example, and I think this is going to put me to shame. Hopefully it puts me to shame. I'll put in Torquelo here, Torquelo who created Grafana. I think he's definitely been more on the coding than me, but he's also been out on vacation. So we'll see. All right. Oh yeah, definitely putting me to shame. That's probably. But so in this way, I can I can go and I can see what's going on with my team, what people are working on, the kinds of things they're getting into. If I need to if I need to go over, take a look at an issue that someone's been working on, it's really easy to go and do.
So I have a question. How did you set up that dashboard?
All right, yeah, and that's an excellent question. And so I was about to go into this. So each of these panels just are different data displays. And here, I'll go into the PR total here. So we have just right here, the visualization. In this case is just called a stats visualization, which just displays a nice big number. So pretty easy for that one. And with this, have the GitHub data source here that was already set up. So we already have one set up with an access token here. Just kind of going over what I showed earlier. But this isn't really, anything serious. It's just a matter of just selecting this. When you select this, you get basically this field right here. And so you have the option to select between, different data, whether it's commits, issues, pull requests, repositories, all kinds of stuff. So we expose, most of the data that's available on GitHub. We're, not surprisingly, we're pretty curious primarily about Grafana repositories. And here we have this query, and this is kind of the important part because this is where things actually get filtered down. So we're making sure that the PR is a PR, and this filters out comments on PRs. And we're setting the author, and right here is kind of this key portion where we're using, we have a variable actually that comes from here and then gets interpolated into the query. And so when this is sent to GitHub, that will, in this case, put Torquelo in there. And then the query gets run in the background. And so this sends basically a request to the GitHub API to get pull requests and we're making sure not to get any comments. And we're also getting these for the correct person. We have to select a time field. We are filtering by the last 30 days. And so in this case, we're just doing the time that the PR was created. But you can also choose to when PRs are closed or merged as well. And this goes for other things too. So if you want to use different times, for instance, you can look at, for an issue, you can do created time or closed time as well.
Can you check to see, is a part of this, can you check to see, when you were mentioned in an issue or a PR?
Ooh, mentions. That's a good question. I've not actually tried to do mentions. Rather than doing that one live, I'm going to have to get back to you on that one.
Yes, of course.
But I suspect that you can, yes. So this is using under the hood we do use the GraphQL API of GitHub,
Mhm.
which is like very full featured. And so that's what kind of allows us to really get all this data, is the
Mhm.
fact that we're interfacing with that really does kind of allow us to do quite a bit.
Nice. And here's a related question. So, is the GitHub dashboard configuration available with the base install of Grafana, or is it like an add-on?
So it is an add-on. Really simple to add it though. I didn't show it since I already did have it available in the Grafana instance I was using.
Mhm.
But in that step where I configured the GitHub data source, the only extra step is in there is you're going to be prompted to click a button to install the GitHub data source plugin. That's it. It'll just, once you do that, it'll automatically download and run. And so kind of no big issues there. Very straightforward to do.
Nice. And is there a similar plugin available for GitLab?
Yes, we do have a GitLab plugin as well. That is, interesting.
Nice.
That is in our enterprise offering. So that is paid, but it is also available on Grafana Cloud.
Nice. That's awesome. What else do you have to show us?
So yeah, just trapping back in over here.
I like that.
Thanks. So one of the nice things we can do here is we did have these links, and you can see here, we have closed draft PRs, open PRs, and what we're doing with each of these is we still have the query behind the scenes. We're just modifying it a little bit for each one of these, just to get the correct conditions. So all these queries are still getting run in the background. And what I did want to show too is these links. We call these data links, and what they allow you to do is create dynamic links that can link off to anywhere. And so with that, and using those kind of variables that I showed earlier, is that we have a link here. We're not having an extra title because we're just using the text that's provided. But so this would be, in this case, the number is the ID of the pull request. And so here we actually do get like a link out to the full pull request. And so this can be useful too, whether you're using GitHub or if you're using other tools that reference PR numbers and things like that, you're able to link out to them very easily. So this is just quite quick and easy to set up. I think this particular dashboard I kind of been set up in the past. I was playing it and playing around with it this morning though. It only really took about like maybe 10-15 minutes to get it into the shape that I was expecting. So not bad at all. Same thing, we can look at issues, open issues, things that have issues that were closed but not merged. That might be interesting depending on what we're looking at. We may want to know, what we're deciding not to do, what people have kind of set to the wayside can also be interesting. And so this is just kind of like a way to look at like what a contributor is doing. But we may also want to look, for instance, say kind of at like more general stats. So I'm going to move over to like more general stats now. I don't think we need to save the changes there.
I have a very interesting question that popped up while you're going to the next page. So could this be used to trigger alerts in case there are like multiple or too many PRs open?
Yes, this can be used to trigger alerts. I don't want to like dive into like the alert functionality that we have, and it is really full featured, but pretty much you can just set thresholds based on those queries. So if you are getting certain numbers, say like a certain number of open PRs, for instance, you could configure that to fire off an alert. And there are a lot of different ways to do the alerts, whether it's like SMS, email, Slack messages. So a lot of flexibility there.
Nice.
Oh, and thank you, Perry. That's very kind words, and it's great to hear. All right, so this is another thing I was playing around, and this is just looking at issues on the Grafana repository itself. Not surprisingly, the issue ID number is slowly going up as you would expect. But one more thing, and I kind of left this a bit more bare so we could play with it a bit, is looking at, okay, maybe we're kind of curious about what's getting closed. Are we closing out issues, and kind of at what cadence we're closing out issues? So this is just a time series display. We get a line chart, but if we want to view the underlying data, I can click this table view button. So this is the data that's actually coming back from the GitHub API. Just gives us an idea of what we have to play with. And so what I'm going to do is actually, I'm much more curious about the closed one. So I'm going to do in the queries, I'm going to set closed to true. Hopefully this will actually work. Oh man. Sometimes I mess up the filters here. We do link over to the documentation. Search by open or closed state. There we go. Is closed. That's what it is. So I did make a little mistake there. Is closed. Okay. All right. So now that's working. And we're probably not as curious about like when the closed issues were created. Actually, much more curious about when they're closed at. Okay, and so now this is actually, I feel like, getting a little bit interesting. We still just have, this is showing the issue number. This time series display, we do have to show a number of some kind. And right now, the only real number we have is this one. But we're going to go and change that. And I'm going to bump this out. Let's do like the last 30 days. Okay, and I think now we have actually a decent amount of data here to play with. Again, like here, okay, this is probably not super interesting, but we can't change over to a bar chart. And oh yeah, so right now it's just grabbing that first string field for the x-axis, and here I'm gonna change these labels. Ooh, boy. See if I can get this all on here. Wow, those labels are fun.
Wow.
But let's go. We're much more curious about like closed at. Oh man. Okay. So still getting, there's a huge block of text there because these are just all these closed times. We're kind of curious though, like when things are getting closed out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a transformation. So this is going to take the data from the API and change it a bit. And I'm going to format the time. So close that. And so this is, we support all the Moment.js time formats. And I think what I want to look at is how many we're closing per month. So let's do year here. See if I get this right. Month. Ooh, man. That's still pretty ugly. Last 30 days. There. Okay. See if I can actually get this time format right. Oh, man. Still not coming out exactly how I want it. See if I can see those labels. Ooh, not quite. So, when in doubt, can always Google things.
Yes.
And if I can actually get to my bar, maybe not. You know, might have to just skip this one. We'll see how this goes.
What if we minimize the time period? Instead of 30 days, like
bring that down.
Like 7 days.
7 days.
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
Oh yeah, that's why. Getting month and day of the week. Yeah. That's like, so we're looking at kind of here month of the year.
Yeah.
Which isn't probably the best way to look at this. But we're seeing, we're still getting kind of certain correlations here. which is always kind of like what we're looking down for. I'm going to do one more transformation here. It's really group by, and so we're going to group down all of these just by the number. And really, we're not going to actually group it. We're just going to count it. So that should give us approximately a count of all these. And so there we go. Just close that. Just getting a kind of a count. So we do see that we're actually closing bugs at a fairly steady rate for the most part, which is good to know. Like in general, if we are closing bugs, that's a good thing. If we're always keeping bugs open, that's probably not so great. But it allows us to like dig into the data a little bit this way.
So just for clarification, so when it comes to setting up Grafana with in this repository, not organization?
Sorry, what was that?
So when it comes to setting up Grafana with your repository, we just log into the Grafana Cloud dashboard and use like a pat to connect it. There's like no coding or anything else that's required to do that.
No, there's no coding at all for any of this.
Nice.
It's all set and ready to go. With the way the personal access tokens work is you'll get access to whatever that access token is capable of accessing. So like right now, I'm filtering down to the Grafana org and the Grafana repo just to kind of filter down what we're looking at. But you can set those to anything. And it doesn't need to be just a particular repo. You can do actually across a whole org. So if I just remove this, this will do everything Grafana, which I think will just kind of slightly change the numbers here. But otherwise, we'll totally change the numbers. But
wow.
But so you can look at a single repository, but you can also look at like code across your entire organization as well.
Nice. That seems like sneakily easy. And I hate to use the word easy, but I really like the way that the dashboard is built and how intuitive it is to, like play around with. I noticed like when you update like one of the fields, let's say you update the query field to is closed, you hit that refresh button, which means that it's like auto saving. There's like no save button. It's just like auto refreshing on its own. That's very interesting. So when it comes to setting up custom dashboards, what would you say, like, what are some best advice or like, what are some user-friendly ways to do that? Is there documentation that lays it all out for us?
We have really in-depth documentation for how to set things up, how all the different visualizations work, these transformations I was showing. We have documentation for all the transformations as well. There are a lot of good resources along with videos and everything else to get up and going. Generally speaking, I've worked with a lot of dashboards and I've seen folks work with Grafana a lot. It definitely seems like, for something like this, if you want to get up and going with it, I would say, maybe set aside like an hour or so just to kind of familiarize yourself. But usually like after that first hour, it becomes pretty familiar and, people get up and going with it like really quick. And this goes for like non-technical folks as well. Actually, a couple of the personal dashboard I showed that showed the code stats for like each person was initially set up by a manager actually, so a non-technical person. So it's very possible to go in and set these things up. Kind of just more about deciding what's important to you and kind of what matters for your organization or your project, kind of what you're working with, rather than, I think the tool itself we try and have it stay out of the way and be pretty user-friendly. So
yeah, nice. We have a question here. So I'm a newbie. Do I really need Grafana? So that leads into another question I had was like, who is the audience for Grafana? Like, who are Grafana users essentially? And does a newbie really need Grafana?
Yeah, well, I think the answer is definitely yes. And I guess it depends how much of a newbie you are in the coding world. Um, I think traditionally Grafana was mostly used by technical folks, but that's, especially in recent years, that's expanded a lot. So we have everyone using it from SREs, data engineers, but also now business analysts, other analyst positions, people who are in management for various things. We have a pretty wide audience and quite a few users these days. And yeah, I think in terms of like getting going with it like early, I think it's pretty valuable. The kinds of insights that you can gain from this, or just being able to navigate things in a way that makes sense for your project, I think is really powerful. And I'm going to show some other things too that I think what I've been showing right now is kind of just the tip of the iceberg. Let's see what's kind of going on with stuff. But we have other capabilities as well that I think really are even more exciting. So
Nice.
cool. Are there any more questions at the moment, or I can kind
Oh,
of
yes.
keep on going?
Yes. Okay, so are there any key videos or books or websites that you recommend for setting up dashboards and alerts?
Oh yeah, I would definitely recommend checking out our blog and our docs. We have a whole series of blog posts and things talking about exactly this. There are also we have a lot of YouTube videos as well. A lot of great developer relations, people who've taken the time to go through, set up alerts, set up dashboards, and they do a great job. So really awesome resources out there.
Yeah. Awesome. And another question is there a community version of Grafana for small home projects or tinkering? I had this question too.
Yep. You can basically you can go to our website and download it. The community version has, I would say, most of the features that the enterprise version has. The enterprise version, we really try to target at larger organizations, larger enterprises who do need extra features and connection to data sources and things like that might not be so typical. But just in general, we already out of the box connect to a wide range of data sources, most time series databases like Prometheus or Graphite, pretty much all the SQL databases, whether it's Postgres, MySQL, or what have you. And then a bunch of other things on top of that, including GitHub. It's all free to use and download.
Nice. You want more questions, or you want to keep going first and then take more questions?
No, we can do more questions. That's cool.
Okay. So how does one contribute to Grafana?
Oh, that's excellent question. So if you go to the Grafana GitHub repository, there are a bunch of issues out there. We do try and I do believe we have a tag for kind of easier issues to fix. I will find that so I can send that over to you, Kadesha. I can maybe put it in the show notes. We are very, very happy to get contributions from folks, and part of my job actually is reviewing open source contributions. And so if you put something out there, we will pretty much always be looking at it and taking a look and trying to get it in. I think generally speaking, it's been pretty rare that we've actually kind of rejected a pull request. I think almost always, if we have feedback, we'll say that. But typically speaking, I think we're very open to any kind of contribution.
Nice. So go ahead and give Grafana a star, check out their issues. If you're new to contributing to open source, make sure to look for that good first issue label.
Yeah.
If you have suggestions on how to improve the platform, open up an issue. And you can also look at the documentation, see if anything is not clear or anything, submit an issue for that as well. That's another great way to contribute to open source. It helps improve the documentation. The repository link is being cascaded across the screen. So definitely go check out Grafana. Now let's get back to the demo.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, this is perfect. I did show this. I was kind of curious about the number of contributions, depending on how people like set up their company. And not surprisingly, we do have a decent chunk from Grafana, but you can see we also have quite a few other businesses and folks here from other organizations that are contributing. And these are all merged pull requests, so already in the product, which is great. All right, so kind of moving along, I did also want to show off some kind of a bit more interesting things, I think, and it's cool to be able to kind of get a 10,000 foot view, but also interesting to see what's happening when we do pull requests, when we are merging code, when that code is getting deployed, and just loading this up here. So what I have here, actually, this is just, at the moment, this is just a random time series. But this can be like any data. This could be CPU monitoring or anything like that. But we have a capability called annotation queries. And what that allows is for these little annotations to be put on top of the data from another source. Oh, thank you. That's excellent. Yeah, the annotations are really cool. So with this, say this was like CPU usage for the service I was looking at. I can see when code was getting merged and potentially deployed, and then see if there's anything happening as a result of that code I deployed, because I'll be able to see when it happened, but also see what's going on in another service. So this is a really, really powerful capability. And kind of getting back, if you're someone on the newer end, I think this is something that can be really useful. If you're trying to set up a little web service or something like that, being able to see what caused something to happen in a very clear way can make your life really easy. Because you can go right back to say, oh, it wasn't this pull request. Actually, it was 3 pull requests ago where the problem started.
Right.
And let me show how to do this, because this is actually not hard at all. So in this dashboard, I'm just going to go to the settings. And under the settings, there's this annotations tab. And just have a list right here. I have one set up. And we're doing the same thing where we're editing the query just like I did before. In this context rather than in the context of setting up one of those panels. And with that, you get the same interface. So I just selected pull requests on the Grafana org and repository. I select the merge that time. It tells you if you're getting any results back. So you are getting some interactivity just to make sure that the query you're doing is actually getting data, is getting information. And then we're selecting the time that we care about, but can also set the other things, the other data points of the annotations as well as needed. One nice thing about this is that you can do the annotations allow time windows too. So if, for whatever reason, if I perhaps wanted to see when things are being opened and when they're being merged, for instance, I would be able to see time windows on those too. So it is possible. Right now, I'm just looking at the data points when things were merged. But if I am interested, I can put more information in there.
Nice.
So this is actually really all I have to do for this portion. It's just set this up, and this is pretty much good to go. And then when I go back to the dashboard, they just appear on there. And as I said, this is just random data at the moment. But you can, with this data source, I can select any data source that I have and then put these annotations on top of whatever source of data it is, whether could be CPU usage, it could be monitoring for a database, it could be something like synthetic monitoring where I'm seeing if the front end of my service is working or something like that. So this is one of those tools that really allows you to start digging in and
Yeah.
kind of correlating events and seeing what's happening. And so this is, I think, especially like for folks who are doing DevOps type stuff, or
Hmm.
like a whole like team to be able to do stuff like this, just maybe a few engineers. This is a super helpful way to just get like a little extra juice out of like what you're doing. You prevent yourself from like having to dig through a lot of things to get the information.
And also prevent your team and your company from using like multiple tools. I think there's another tool that does stuff like New Relic, I think, has a dashboard. I remember like digging through New Relic logs to try to figure out what happened. And somebody here said that they use this feature a lot to track if anything is triggered during a certain time frame, and they use them a lot with feature flags. I love that this is also incorporated in Grafana.
Oh yes, and that's actually a great idea. Using something like this with feature flags, so
Yeah.
using the annotations to see when a feature flag was toggled, for instance, or something like that, could be super useful because you're getting really immediate feedback into what's going on in your infrastructure and in your code. So definitely, I think is one of those tools that can make a big tangible difference in like the day-to-day like working life rather
Yeah.
than like digging through logs and stuff like that. It's just it
Yes.
goes down to looking at a dashboard. With the dashboard you can also share it with folks. This is something that someone who's not technical can look at and still understand. You can point out like, well, here's where we released the code, here is where things went wrong. So it gives you a lot of capabilities in that way. Makes it much easier to communicate what's going on in general, in my opinion.
Yeah. And so as Grafana grows and as cloud native environments become a lot more complex, how do you see Grafana's role evolving within the DevOps ecosystem?
Ooh, that is an excellent question. And yeah, the DevOps environment has become a lot more complex. There's so many tools out there. And I think what Grafana is great at is really it can be the glue for all these different tools. And we do interface with almost everything, including some other things you might not expect. We interface with other monitoring tools like Datadog. We support the Open Telemetry standard. So that means that if you're using anything Open Telemetry based, you can get that data into Grafana or our Grafana products. We have a logs database called Loki. We have a traces database called Tempo. So there are a lot of like little pieces that you can put together from the Grafana stack to make a nice solution. And the nice thing about it is you don't have to adopt it wholesale. You can just do it in bits and pieces, kind of a la carte, or if you need the whole stack for logging, traces, metrics, and for the data display with Grafana, it's there too. So there are a lot of options. So even if you're using other infrastructure, other stuff, you can put Grafana in there, use it as a really nice way to kind of bridge the gap between different tools and make it kind of clear what's going on, like in the whole picture from kind of a 10,000 foot view.
That's awesome. So Grafana is a tool that scales with you as you grow, essentially, is what I'm hearing.
Oh yes, absolutely. And we work with folks who have just a handful of dashboards. We also have people who have hundreds of thousands of dashboards, and so the capabilities there, yeah, it really does kind of scale with your needs. Whether you're starting off small or you're in a position where you have a lot of stuff to monitor, it's very capable of both those situations.
Nice. And you mentioned open telemetry, and someone had a question. So using open telemetry tracing, can I capture GitHub Actions pipeline execution in Grafana?
That's actually a really good question.
I know.
I think I believe that we do have GitHub Actions support. In the data source, I would need to look and see if we support the tracing from the GitHub Actions. I was actually going to show something tracing related, so yeah, maybe that's a good time to do this.
Yeah, let's do it right now.
All right, cool. And so I did want to show, very quickly, since we're kind of running down on time here. What I did here is I'm in the Explore interface. So this is not a dashboard. The Explore interface just allows you to create queries, and then it'll bring the information back in kind of a table format so that you can explore it a little bit. And all I did was I got the commits from the Grafana repository. And just looking at the main branch. So things that have gone into like the main portion of our code. And with this, I have set up what's called a correlation. And so with correlations, I can take this commit ID and then use it for a query in another system. In this case, it's with Tempo, which is our traces database. So I'm going to basically be loading up a trace for this commit ID. And so I'm going to click this. There we go. And so if I go down here to this trace, we use Drone right now for CI and CD. And here we go. So I can look actually into each of these commits and see pretty much the whole breakdown of what happened in the CI/CD run, how long it took, how, not only how long it took, but how long each particular section and stage took as well. So getting a full breakdown of each and every commit and how the CI/CD works with those.
That's amazing.
So to that question, and thank you. The folks who did this, shout out to the Explore and the Traces teams at Grafana Labs. Really smart
Nice.
people.
I mean, the product is amazing, honestly.
Thank you. That's very good. That's very kind of you, Ganesha. So with this, we're able to see and get a really good sense of everything that's kind of occurring throughout these builds. And if you want to drill down into it, you can. In this case, we did have to do some work to set up Drone with Tempo, so that's getting that data. But just as far as setting this up, this is actually pretty straightforward. And here I will step back for a bit, and I'm just going to redo this quick. Okay. So all I did to get this to work, and I'm going to intentionally break this quick, so we're not getting any data back. I'm going to put Grafana and main back in there. Okay. And so we just go over to add correlation. Select the ID in this case because we're correlating based on the ID. Grab that. Here we're using variables again. So I'm just curious about this ID variable. The author and everything else for this case don't need it. And then, get the right data source. And we're going into search. And then I'm just searching the tags in this case. Build after. And then I'm just going to paste ID in here like that. And that's it. So I should be able to, at this point, save the correlation. And yep, it's still there. And so this is all this took to actually get set up. You see, I've set this up now 3 times, all the same one, but if we go in, check it out, and it's still working as intended.
Nice.
So in terms of like getting this stuff set up, things like this, this is quite straightforward. In terms of like, I had actually not done this before until like this past week. Basically, one of my coworkers sent me a video about how to do this, and really, what you saw is pretty much what it took me to get up and going. So
Yeah.
really not bad. I feel like, you know, as long as you have the infrastructure and the pieces in place, just pasting things around a little bit, being a bit aware of kind of what data is what, can get you really, really far with Grafana set up.
Nice. Nice. Very, very cool. Any last minute words or call to actions that you want people to know about or take?
Yeah, well, you know, it's great to be presenting here. I hope it was interesting for folks. I hope people go out, download Grafana, get the GitHub data source, play around with it, see what your organization is doing with their code, see what you're doing with your code, and how it's impacting things. I think, you know, make your life a little easier. That's would be my call to action. It's definitely worth it. Worth not having to dig through logs and tons of issues and stuff to get to what you're looking at. Get to a nice spot where you can have a dashboard or something, so you get a quick snapshot, navigate around easy. It's definitely, you know, it's something we use a lot internally, just to see what's going on for what we're building. And so, you know, we're eating our own dog food on this one, and you know, I think we can definitely suggest that, you know, it's been valuable to us for sure.
Nice. You heard it here, folks. Please go and star Grafana's repo. Check it out for yourself. Download it. Get set up. See, you know, what you're doing in your org or your repository. You just need a pat. You know, you just need a pat with access, and whatever access you have, that's the data you're going to get back from Grafana. So make sure you go check it out. Give it a star. Give it a try. Submit some issues. Take on some issues, and make the open source ecosystem keep spinning, all right? So
That's right.
Kyle, thank you so much for joining us today for Open Source Friday. Thank you everyone for joining us for Open Source Friday. And until next week, bye.
All right, thank you. Bye.